Are there certain people that have such low levels for a long time that you can see that the low levels are leading to certain disease states? Like, what are those people that have a low level of essential fatty acids? What do they look like? What do they feel after living in that?
Yeah, I'm not sure you could say there's a symptom in the sense of, like having a cold or something like that. The way we can tell that they're not doing well is they develop these chronic diseases prematurely.
Got it.
So a lot of our work recently has been looking at blood omega-3 levels in large populations. We follow these people for decades. We see who's dying of what, and we find out that the people that have the lowest omega-3 levels are the ones that die earliest, develop heart disease earliest, develop cancer early. They also have developed dementia earlier.
Bill, thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure. Glad to be here.
It's a topic that I've been wanting to talk about for a while, and you're the expert. You are the expert in the United States because you actually developed the test on omega-3s.
Yeah, we did about 22 years ago.
22 years ago, this test has been out. And I think, throughout cardiology, all of nutrition, all of medicine, we've been talking about omega-3 now for decades.
Right.
And, I think it's one of those topics that people have heard about. They maybe know a little bit about its relationship to cardiovascular health, but no one really has done a deep dive. And more importantly, it's important to know that you can actually test your omega-3 index and then determine how much of a need that you have for maybe omega-3 supplementation, changing your nutrition, et cetera. And so you're the world's expert. I'm so excited to have you here to educate me, my audience, on omega-3s, how to test for it, and how we should be taking it.
Great. That's what we do.
So jumping right into it, tell us, what are omega-3s and what are they used for in the body?
Yeah, the omega-3s are fatty acids, fats, oils. They typically come from fish, seafood. That's where the omega-3 part comes from. They're fatty acids. There's basically 4 different kinds of fatty acids. We call saturated fatty acids, which are solid at room temperature, like you think butter, Crisco, that kind of stuff. And then there's monounsaturated fats, which is think olive oil, canola oil. They're liquid. And then there's polyunsaturated fatty acids, which have, they're a number of double bonds. They're called poly because there's 2 or more double bonds in a molecule. Monounsaturates have 1 double bond. Saturates have no double bonds.
Got it.
In the polyunsaturated group, you have omega-6 and omega-3.
Got it.
And the reason they're called omega, why omega, right, is because actually, if you look at a fatty acid molecule, at the first carbon in the chain, it's a long chain of carbon atoms. The first one's called the alpha carbon.
Okay.
And the last one, whatever number it is, whether it's the 14th, the 20th, or the 25th, it's called the omega carbon.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Alpha and omega, and beginning and end of the Greek alphabet. And so if you count back 3 positions from the omega carbon, omega -3, you get the first double bond. And that's characteristic of all the omega-3 family. And if you count back 6 positions, first double bond, that's the omega-6 family.
Got it.
They're both essential. We can't make them. They're like vitamins in that sense.
Right.
But the omega-3s have very different roles than omega-6s than the other ones do too, than saturates or monos.
Got it.
But the omega-6s and omega-3, those are the ones that are essential.
And the other ones are non-essential because
we can make them from sugar,
make them.
Protein. Our body can make them.
Right, right. So across the spectrum of fats, you mentioned, you have the saturated fats, the mono and the polyunsaturated fats. There's also that group of trans fats. Can you talk about those a little bit?
Yeah, the trans fats. Those are timely these days. This is because in chemistry, we just find if there's a double bond in a molecule, usually the double bond is where the one carbon goes up and one carbon goes down from the other ones. It's hard to explain without a picture. In producing industrially produced saturated fats like Crisco, they use a process where they take a oil like corn oil or soybean oil, and they will artificially create these trans bonds, where the fatty acid, where the chain is actually, instead of being kind of bent like it should be, it's straight. Trans fats are from industrially produced fats. Less and less Americans, it's going away from our food supply because the FDA basically essentially banned them, or they have to be less than, I think, 0.5 grams or something per serving of food. So the food industry has found ways to get around making them, but for years and years, and there's still some products that have them.
Yeah.
So we like to measure trans fats in the blood too, so people can get those as low as possible.
Right. I think, trans fats, the reason they get a lot of attention nowadays is because they've been found to be particularly dangerous to our heart health. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. That's correct. We didn't realize that in the 70s and 80s, but in the 90s, a lot of studies came out to figure that they thought this was okay.
Yeah.
Early studies said, well, yeah, it looks like it's good. It was a replacement for saturated fat, which was supposed to be bad.
Right.
And now, in nutrition, everything gets totally turned over. I mean, it's amazing how everything's controversial now in nutrition, it seems like.
Yeah.
So anyway, the trans fats got pretty much banned early part of the 21st century. And
why do the food companies even make trans fat? Was it to replace saturated fats and provide an alternative? And the whole craze of saturated fats are bad for you? Is that the reason?
Exactly right.
Got it.
So they could take a liquid oil and they could make it solid.
Right.
And that had all the culinary mouthfeel and the stability.
I see.
They didn't go rancid.
Yeah.
Because you haven't got double bonds, you don't get rancidity.
Right.
And so that was a nice replacement for beef tallow or lard. So we can make this from vegetable oils, which is what Crisco is.
Yeah.
I'm not dissing Crisco here, but that's the one most people know about.
Yeah. So basically, they would last longer, have the same mouth feel that people wanted, and they eventually became very cheap to produce because factories were making them
Yeah, well, and margarines, all the margarines were
Yes.
certainly the hard stick margarines were loaded with trans.
And then to your point, I think people get a little bit of a false sense of comfort knowing that there's basically like an FDA ban around these. However, they're still pretty present in some foods. And what I find is people that eat a lot of, I would say, fried foods from fast food places, people that have basically a fast food diet, they still measure pretty high on trans fat.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Right. And if it's like homemade stuff, you can end up making a lot. If you fry stuff, you're going to have some trans fats in your food. If it's the packaged foods where the FDA can control it, but stuff that you do at home,
Restaurants and what you do at your home, you can make
still
your own
legal.
trans fats, exactly.
Yeah, you make them. You can buy them, right? Exactly.
Yeah, you can make. So the way you cook your food, whether you fry it or not, at high temperatures, is extremely important because you're just making trans fat at your own home.
Well, you're probably not making it at home. You're buying it and you're using it. If it's a vegetable oil-based solid fat,
got it,
like a Crisco or like a margarine, it's going to have trans fats in it.
Got it.
But people can still buy that stuff and cook with it, bake with it. So again, there's less of it. I think we like to measure the blood levels of it so people will know exactly where they are.
Yeah.
And sniff out the foods that are in their diet that are
got it. You're making it in your food if you're buying these.
You're eating it. That's the only way you get it is by eating it.
Yeah. And so the idea would be to lower trans fat as much as possible in your body, right?
That's
So we're going to talk a little bit later about testing for fats and different types of fats and why that's important, but that could be a potential test that people can do.
Right.
Okay, so then moving on from trans fat to saturated fats, there's massive amount of controversy on saturated fats on social media, as you know.
I know.
Break it down for us.
The new dietary guidelines are confusing at best, certainly to nutrition folks, because they're still recommending having low saturated fat diet, like under 10% of calories, which nobody really knows how to figure out their own diet if it's 10%, whatever.
Yeah. How is people going to know that, right?
Right. But then they recommend as fats to be eaten are things like lard and tallow, which are really rich in saturated fat. So it's very hard to meet this 10% goal and emphasize those fats in your diet. It breaks the bank.
Yeah, the new food pyramid has butter and higher up on the food pyramid now.
I know. And
it's confusing for people.
We have a political food pyramid nowadays.
That's true.
I'm not sure we never ever didn't. But
Yeah, I think the first pyramid was a political food pyramid too.
Right.
Yeah.
So we just have to live through these waves of craziness. But at least they're still emphasizing essential fatty acids, so
That's
the
true.
omega-6 and omega-3. And we'll talk about it later, but I'm not one of those that is an enemy of omega-6. I think the omega-6s are good.
Right.
But
so in the saturated fat world, like why is there so much controversy in that world? Because there's some people that say don't be scared of saturated fats. They're fine for you. Cardiologists are telling their patients stay away from saturated fats.
Right.
What's the reality?
Well, the reality is the saturated fats in your diet will give you higher cholesterol levels, higher levels of LDL cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, which pretty well convinced that high levels of that for a long time is not good for your heart.
Right.
It just isn't.
Right.
I mean, we look at Lindsey Graham. He just died of atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease in his aorta, and he had his aorta blew up, basically. He had a very weak spot because of I don't know what he's eating. But we know that high levels of saturated fat, high levels of LDL cholesterol are going to be bad for cardiovascular health. I don't think there's any question about that. And the fact that saturated fats raise it, I see people kind of poo-pooing it because they're more afraid of seed oils, which is the other side, which is what you're not eating. If you're frying your French fries, like some restaurants now have flipped to frying in lard, as opposed to vegetable oils, which is almost everybody else is using, because of this fear of seed oils being just toxic, which is, to me is way blown out of proportion. The evidence just is not there. But I think that's part of the rise of saturated fats is more the fear of the unsaturated seed oil thing.
Right.
Not that people really think saturates are all that necessarily healthy for them. I think they're trying to avoid what they perceive to be something worse.
Sure. Yeah, so people are using them more because of their seed oil fear. And so they're getting more saturated fat, which is bringing up their LDL levels.
Right, exactly. And then you have to take statins to lower that, and nobody wants to do that. So.
Right. Yeah, it's a real hot button in social media right now about seed oils versus saturated fats being okay for you. And, there's a certain group of influencers that are like, don't worry about high LDL levels. You're going to be fine, and it's, I think we do know the science is very clear that having a high level of LDL for a long period of time for most people can cause heart disease.
Amen. That's right. It does.
I think that's the message that we just need to just put a full stop period on. And
right. That's traditional medicine, but doggone it, some stuff is true.
Yeah, exactly. Now, look, it's not just high levels of LDL that lead to cardiovascular disease. There's also metabolic health abnormalities, inflammation. All of these come together to accelerate the cardiovascular disease.
Right.
But, and just to be real clear here, the cardiovascular disease that we're talking about is plaque forming in your arteries. Right.
Yeah. Exactly. We're not talking about arrhythmias per se or other kinds of cardiac problems.
Yes.
Yeah. It's the build of a plaque in the arteries that closes them down.
Right, exactly. And like you mentioned, Lindsey Graham is very topical right now. It's not just in your heart. This can build up in the vessels going to your neck, your aorta, which is a giant blood vessel in your body that goes all the way from your chest to your pelvis. It supplies all your organs. That can also rupture with cardiovascular disease, which is people die from that suddenly.
Very fast.
Yeah.
That's right. And there's something to be said for a quick death, but at a certain age.
Yes.
And I'm not sure 71 is the age.
Right. It's all preventable, in my opinion.
It is preventable.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely preventable. I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm a surgeon, and I used to operate on these ruptured aortic aortas, some from aneurysm, some from plaque buildup, and it's very much not survivable for 99% of people.
And you're able to actually get people before they bleed out?
No, most people show up in the emergency room. I'm sure this is what happened with Lindsey Graham. It just ruptures at home, and you're pretty much dead on arrival at that point in time. We try, but it's not going to happen. Now, with preventative testing now, there's a lot more people getting ultrasounds and MRIs of their bodies, and we can catch these early, in which case there are options available now to fix the problem prior to
so
a
you
rupture.
Can see it with an ultrasound? If you got a bulge in your aorta,
Yep, you
that
can
ain't
see
supposed to be there.
Right. right.
Yeah,
And full body MRIs. People are doing a lot more full body MRIs. So we're catching a lot more earlier, and people are having surgical solutions, having stents put in the aorta actually now to block the rupture. So it's definitely, it's available now, and I'm a big fan of preventative testing because a lot of people have built up plaque in their arteries over a long time. And and I think now we live in an age, I mean, you might agree that this has risen to the place where at least we know now that having high LDL cholesterol will lead to these problems, and many people are getting treated. It's just still not enough because cardiovascular disease is still the number one cause of death in America.
It is, right. And for years, it had been, really since the 60s, it had been kind of dropping in prevalence, but it's sort of, it's stabilized now, I guess you'd say. It's not continuing to fall.
Yeah.
And so that's not a good sign.
Right.
I'm not sure that the lard in your French fries is going to help that.
Right, exactly. And then we move on. Let's move on to the topic at hand here, these essential fats that we need. And I think this is a very confusing topic for people because there's a lot of biochemistry, science involved. And I think, just starting the conversation with why are these essential? I know our body can't make them, but what does our body use them for?
The body uses these omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids for a variety of things. Number one, they are made into the membranes. They're incorporated membranes of every cell. And the membranes are just tremendously important in cellular health, which you know well. They keep the membrane fluid, flexible, not stiff. A stiff membrane doesn't operate properly. You can't get the right nutrients in the cell. You can't get the trash out of the cell if the membrane's not, and all the little doors and windows that are in the membrane, they don't open and close right if the cell's too stiff. So that's one thing they do. They just maintain the proper flexibility of the cells. Plus, they're also used for making lots of what we call hormones, prostaglandins, leukotrienes, certain cytochrome P450 metabolites. These are very potent, either vasoconstrictors. They're pro-inflammatory, anti-inflammatory. They keep this very delicate balance on a knife edge of course, inflammation's good to a point, but not beyond. And when when we get a cut, we need to have our blood stopping clotting, and that's part of what the omega-3s and the omega-6s do. Is they help stop that blood from bleeding out because you get form a blood clot with your platelets. So those are important things. Plus, just the general anti-inflammatory effects, I think, of the omega-3s are really the global benefit that they provide. Yeah.
And are there certain people that have such low levels for a long time and that you can see that the low levels are leading to certain disease states? Like, what are those people that have a low level of essential fatty acids? What do they look like? What do they feel after living in that?
Yeah, I'm not sure you could say there's a symptom in the sense of, like having a cold or something like that. The way we can tell that they're not doing well is they develop these chronic diseases prematurely.
Got it.
So a lot of our work recently has been looking at blood omega-3 levels in large populations and looking at, basically we separate a population into like quintiles. So the lowest 20% of omega-3, the next 20% up to the highest omega-3. And then we look at because we follow these people for decades, we see who's dying of what. And we find out that the people that have the lowest omega-3 levels are the ones that die earliest, develop heart disease earliest, develop cancer early. They also have developed dementia earlier. And we've also seen recently, we've been looking at things like suicidal ideation as it relates to omega-3 levels, depression and anxiety. And we're actually starting to look at biological clocks and seeing that the higher omega-3s associated with a slower biological clock. So that's fun. So all those things, none of those, it's not like a pain in your knee. Yeah. Although I will say that when people get on omega-3s for A, B, or C reason, because they hear you talking about it or me talking about it, or they have high triglycerides. I think that's one of the the indications for high dose omega-3 is lowering triglycerides. The thing they'll notice is that their knees don't hurt anymore, or their elbows don't hurt, but that's not why they were taking them. It's just what happens.
Right. It lowers the inflammation in their knees.
It does.
Yeah,
right.
it does help. So having a normal amount of omega-3s prevents the progression towards chronic disease.
Right.
And in that lowest quintile that you saw that they were dying early, that makes total sense. But what if you're in this top quintile? What the people that have really good levels of omega-3s, what do you see with those people?
Yeah, a good example is the Japanese.
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
Japanese, I mean, obviously not all of them, and more traditional Japanese who really eat a traditional Japanese diet, which is high in fish, one of the highest in the world.
Right.
And they have about the highest omega-3 index in the world, which is the blood test.
Yep.
Interestingly, they live 4 years longer than Americans do on average, despite having more hypertension, despite smoking more than we do. About the same. They're also low body weight, and I'm not sure that the omega-3s play a role in that. But I think the fact that and they have very little cardiovascular disease. Right. And I mean, I love to attribute all of this to omega-3. Of course, there's probably 17 other things that's going on in the diet and the culture of Japan. But that's one of the kind of natural experiments that's going on now. We can see this population. There's other high omega-3 populations. The Scandinavians, it's actually started in Greenland. That's where the whole story began, the omega-3 story. Danish scientists found these Greenland Eskimos in the mid-70s who seemed to have very bad diets because they didn't eat fresh fruits and vegetables, you know. They're eating high cholesterol, high saturated fat foods, meat all the time, and yet they weren't having heart attacks. And so these Danish investigators went and studied their blood, studied their food, and that's where they discovered the omega-3s in these
How long ago was that?
Mid-70s.
The Inuits, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they compared Inuit death rates to Dutch, or rather Danish, which is their, remember Denmark does own Greenland.
Right.
Did it back then, they still do.
Not for long. No, I'm just kidding.
Wait a minute. Yeah, careful. But that's where the story started. And there was really, I'll never forget in 1985, one issue of New England Journal had 3 back-to-back papers on the effects of omega-3 on inflammation, on lipids was one of our papers. And the other one was an observational study looking at death rates in people that were eating a lot of fish or little fish. And that really put omega-3s on the map.
Wow.
But that's a long time ago.
One of the things that you mentioned, all these populations that have really good omega-3 levels. What about people that don't eat fish at all? Like there's certain, the vegetarian population, for example. How are they getting their omega-3s?
Well, that's a great question because there is a plant source of omega-3, which is called alpha-linolenic acid.
Right.
We find it in soybean oil. That for most people, that's where you get it. Soybean oil is about 7% alpha-linolenic acid. And we eat a lot of soybean oil in America.
Right.
But the rich sources are things like chia seed oil, flaxseed oil is 50% alpha-linolenic acid.
Right.
But it's not really part of the diet per se.
Yes.
So we're getting about a gram to 2 grams a day, the average person of alpha-linolenic in our diet. And that can be converted to a small extent to EPA and DHA, which is the marine, the long chain omega-3s that we really study. And apparently enough to keep you, I mean, you mentioned a vegan population, Indian, for example.
Yep.
They don't eat any meat, any animal products at all, and that's the only place you get EPA and DHA preformed. And yet they live, grow, reproduce. So they're getting enough.
But they do have a much higher rate of cardiovascular disease.
Yeah, right. And so that's the issue.
Right.
They're not getting optimal amounts. They're getting enough to survive, but they're not really getting optimal health. Yeah.
The highest quintile in that study that you did, were their levels super optimal or just optimal?
No, they were. Most of the studies we do are in large populations where they're not really taking supplements.
Yeah.
So the level we see in the highest quintile is roughly 7 to 8% EPA and DHA. And our test is called the omega-3 index, and it measures the amount of EPA and DHA in a red blood cell membrane. And we like to use a membrane measure instead of the plasma.
Sure.
Plasma is noisy. The membrane, the red cell membrane is more stable.
Yes.
And about 7 to 8% is where we think 8 to 12% is the target. But in these cohorts, they're not taking supplements particularly. They're just eating fish. The highest group might be around 7.5%, 8%.
Got it.
So there's still room to improve.
Yes.
But even there, those high intake groups, high omega-3 groups are getting the best benefit, whether it's cognitive health, heart health, gut health, whatever.
Yeah, so I think in this world where more and more people are suffering with chronic disease and living with chronic disease even at younger and younger ages, having an optimal omega-3 intake is going to be very, very much in your best interest to prevent this from happening, right? And so this is one thing that people can easily do by either increasing their fish consumption or taking a supplement, basically, right?
Those are the ways to do it.
Right, exactly. And I think also, a lot of people, you don't feel having a low omega-3 content in your body. It's not something you feel, like to your point.
You don't feel high cholesterol. You don't feel high blood pressure typically, or a high glucose for that matter, right? You don't feel it. You have to measure. You have to measure, right? And so we live in 2026, and we have tests available to us. I'm a huge fan of biomarker testing, and we do a lot of these tests for our clients at Next Health. And I consider like omega-3 testing critical. It's something that we can easily correct, and it can help you avoid chronic disease. That's right.
And I was so excited to have you on because you developed this test, and the test has become further refined over time, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And one of the refinements you're talking about, because what we're measuring right now is, we take a sample of blood from somebody, and we send it into the lab, and they measure the omega-3 level in the plasma, the liquid portion of the blood, right? And I would love for you to just break down for people why that's not the optimal way of testing for omega-3, and you want to actually look at the red blood cell test that you're talking about.
Yeah, right. Plasma levels, and I'm sure your people are familiar with glucose as opposed to hemoglobin A1C.
Yes, we talk about that a lot of this podcast.
Yeah. So A1C is a much more stable, long-term picture of your glucose control because the blood glucose goes up and down all day long, day in and day out. And you take a blood sample at a given time, you might catch a high level or a low level. And it's the same story with omega-3, that the levels in the plasma will vary considerably day to day, week to week, but the red blood cell levels are solid. I mean, if you're just on a solid intake of omega-3, it'll just be steady as a rock.
Right.
And so you really, the clinician and the consumer can get a really good look without all the noise of what their omega-3 status is if they measure it in the red cell.
Because the red blood cell lasts, 120 days? Is that
correct?
Right?
120 days. So it's kind of a picture of around 3 or 4 months of your intake.
Yeah, and it's so valuable because now like a stabilized number of what is your real omega-3 level, right? And then you can optimize your supplement intake or your food intake to optimize that number. You're saying, so it's measured as a percentage. Can you tell us a percentage of what? Like, what are we breaking down?
Right. It's measured as a percent. So if you picture a red blood cell, it's a round thing, right? A little disc, and it's got a membrane. And the membrane is made up largely of fatty acids. And there's a fixed number of fatty acids in that membrane, and so the percent of the fatty acids in the membrane that are EPA or DHA really can range from about 3% up to maybe 10 or 12%.
Got it.
Most people. So we think 8 to 12% is where it ought to be. And when you increase the amount of omega-3, you actually decrease the amount of omega-6.
Yeah.
Because the bone marrow is where the red cells are made.
Right.
It knows that it needs a certain flexibility of this because this red cell has to, squeeze through capillaries. It's got to deform.
Right.
So it is designed so that there's a certain flexibility of that membrane. If you haven't got the omega-3s, it'll put omega-6s in and get most of the same job done. But we think the omega-3 at 8 to 12% is really the sweet spot.
Got it. So it's 8 to 12% of that overall
the total
cell
fatty
membrane.
Acids. Right. There's about 28 fatty acids roughly that we measure. And so, 8 to 12% of the total.
Got it.
EPA and DHA.
You see, you actually measure the other 20-something fatty acids as well.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Any insights there for people?
Well, that's trans fats. We talked
you
about.
measure trans fats, right?
We measure trans fats. And, of course, we measure the omega-6s, and there's about 7 different omega-6 fatty acids in your blood. There's really only 1 or 2 in your diet.
Okay.
The rest of them are part of metabolic products of what you eat.
Oh, okay.
Because the primary omega-6 in your diet is called linoleic acid. It's an essential omega-6. It's what's in seed oils, okay?
Yeah.
And it's our research and those other people have seen this for a long time. Higher levels of linoleic acid, the omega-6 in the food, that are in your blood, the better your health outcomes. Whether it's, again, dementia, mortality, total mortality, cardiovascular mortality, cancer mortality. The people who are up in that higher quintile of linoleic acid in their blood also have lower risk for those diseases, just like the omega-3s.
Got it.
And what's interesting is the omega-6s, like I mentioned, there's about 7 of them. If you take this big one, that linoleic acid, which is 75% of what's of the omega-6 in your blood, whatever's left, the other omega-6s, they have different relationships with health outcomes. But you can't really control those levels. You can control how much linoleic you have in your blood by how much you eat.
Yeah.
Because that's the only place you can't make it.
Right.
So I'm not an enemy of seed oils.
Right.
Because, there may be issues with heating and multiple heating and oxidation products, stuff like that. I get that.
Right.
But when people get excited about the omega-6 content, the linoleic acid, and say that's a bad thing, I say, no, that's not what the data says.
No. Yeah. So omega-6 is the linoleic, the majority of them is beneficial for your health, actually, is what you guys are saying.
It's beneficial
in the studies,
for your health. Right.
So you want to have normal levels of omega-3s and omega-6.
Yeah, well, you want to have, normal, as you know, normal is not what most people want.
Yeah, they want
optimal.
Optimal,
right?
Exactly.
And we're trying to define what optimal is.
That's true, right?
These days, and it's clear the omega-3 story. 90% of Americans, 95, are not optimal.
Right, exactly. And I think, it's always nice to say, I'll just eat more fish. But the reality of day-to-day existence is that...
Well, and fish vary tremendously in how much omega-3 they've got. So you can go eat tilapia and, orange roughy or cod or shrimp, and you're not going to get hardly any omega-3s at all, but you're eating fish. It's the salmon, mackerel, sardines.
Right.
Anchovies, albacore tuna is pretty good.
Smash fish, right?
Smash, you got it.
Right?
You've got
Sardines,
it. You've been
mackerel.
listening. You've been listening.
I try to focus on them. It's
that's good.
Yeah, it's. One can of sardines is like you don't need a supplement. Just take a can of sardines,
absolutely.
Right? People don't eat cans of sardines anymore.
No, I know there's people trying to get them to do that.
Yeah, it's become a trend now on social media.
It is kind of the sardine diet. Wait a minute, how long can you do this?
Right.
It's a good start, but so that's really a good source of omega-3 supplements. You mentioned earlier there are a wide variety of supplements.
Right.
From typically, the lower the cost, the lower the price of the supplement, the lower the amount of omega-3 per capsule.
Right. What else is in there?
Other normal fats, other dietary fats, nothing weird. It's just that you haven't got, there's saturates, monounsaturates, some other not much omega-6. But the more concentrated, the more omega-3 there is per capsule, the more effort the manufacturer has gone to get rid of everything else. And that concentrates the omega-3s.
And I think there's, in the supplement industry right now around omega-3s, there's a lot of focus on having the best product, right? And it sounds like there's a lot of focus around the where the omega-3 is coming from. I think there's a lot of talk around also the potential rancidity of the omegas in the capsule as well when you're taking them and how you store them. Can you break it down? If someone's looking for the best omega-3 supplement that they can find, what should they be looking for?
That's a great question. Well, without trying to get commercial and recommend any given particular product, but typically the more omega-3 there is per capsule.
And it says that on the...
And it says, you can look. I mean, you have to look, typically on the nutrition facts panel, it'll say serving size, 2 pills. Then it'll give you how much EPA and DHA is in 2 pills. So you divide it in half, you get per capsule. Okay. Right. If you're in the 500, 700, 800 milligrams per gram per capsule, that is going to be a very high quality product.
That's a great product, right?
Because the more they concentrate it, the more they clean out everything else.
Sure.
Now, mercury is something that's not even going to be in any product because it doesn't find its way into the oil side. It's a water soluble.
Right,
molecule.
exactly. Well, and that brings up a good point, because a lot of people that are trying to get their omegas from fish, if they're getting it from large fish, they could be increasing their mercury intake.
Yeah. And there's like 4 fish that are particularly bad that hardly anybody eats, actually. I mean, swordfish, shark, tilefish, king mackerel are the real ones that have the highest amount of mercury. We've been looking at the balance of the omega-3 content versus the mercury. And I think people get really scared about mercury to the point where they avoid something that's really healthy. But the mercury is, I think, way overblown. We just did a big meta-analysis with a large group looking at the question of mom's diet while she's pregnant and how much fish is she eating. And what are the mental or intellectual outcomes of the kids, IQ. And what we found was, I think, 35 different observational cohorts all pooled together, something like that. The more fish mom ate, regardless of the mercury, the higher the IQ of the kid. And it was like a delta of 7 points of IQ from the lowest intake of fish to the highest. And so women who are pregnant, who are avoiding fish for fear of mercury, are also avoiding a really good nutrient. Well, it's not just omega-3. I mean, you got iodine, you got selenium, you got great protein. The fish is a good source of a lot of good nutrition.
Sure. That's comforting to hear.
I think we need to not be so afraid of the tiny little whispers of contaminants that you can find. Analytical instruments nowadays can find one molecule of any contaminant in whatever product, beef, any food is going to have this stuff. And we spend far too much time worrying about the bad stuff and not getting the good stuff in.
I agree with that. So going back to the supplements again, krill oil versus fish oil.
Krill oil is primarily a phospholipid based. Most fish oils are triglyceride based, which is triglyceride is just another name for an oil. A phospholipid is also a lipid, obviously, but it's a slightly different structure. 2 fatty acids per molecule instead of 3 fatty acids per molecule. And originally, people thought that the phospholipid form was more readily absorbed. That's still controversial. I think the triglyceride-rich oils are pretty much just as good as the krill oil rich. But krill's a good product. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not magical. It's a good source of omega-3. And then there's algal omega-3s too that are made from algae.
That's
not
great
seaweed.
for vegan.
For vegans, absolutely. If you want to know, every product can't be from an animal. Then there are certain single-celled microalgae. There are thousands of different species, and the scientists have discovered, 3 or 4 or 5 that are really good at making EPA and DHA, which is the original source in the ocean of these molecules. Because fish don't make them any better than we do. They eat them.
So the fish is eating the algae, which is where they get their
right. Actually, it's a deeper food chain. It's the little micro mollusks are eating the algae, and then the little fish eat those, and then the big fish eat the little food chain stuff.
Amazing.
And the omega-3s just go up the food chain. But there are very good algal produced EPA and D, and you don't need to kill any fish or use any fish. And actually, most of the omega-3 that's used in supplements is not. It's a byproduct of the fishing industry primarily. It's
Oh,
like
okay.
the heads, the guts, the stuff that's not going to
They don't
be
use for serving
right,
food.
but you can extract the omega-3s from
Got
that.
it. Okay.
So there's not really a pressure on the like the fillet. That's
Right.
not where they're getting the omega-3s for these products.
I see. And so, if someone were to supplement with an omega-3, I guess the idea is to find the one with the highest concentration of omega-3 in the capsule, so you're getting kind of the biggest dose, basically.
Yeah.
That's basically what you're
right.
looking for.
And you can get what we've seen in our research is that people who start off with a fairly average omega-3, American average omega-3 index of 4%.
Which is too low.
Which is too low.
Right.
Right. But, that's normal. Normal is not always good.
Right.
If they want to get up to an 8%, they need to take roughly 1,500 milligrams a day of EPA DHA.
Okay.
You need to bump that much, which is not that much.
Right.
A couple of capsules.
Right.
Will do that. Or eating, salmon 3 times a week would do that.
Yeah.
And so, of course, everybody's different. They digest different. So, which is why we like to measure the blood levels.
Yeah.
But that's if people want a kind of a ballpark idea of how much should I take if I want to go from a typical American up to a healthy
Optimal,
level,
right?
Somewhere between 1.5 and 2 grams a day.
Got it.
Will do it.
Yep. And that's most supplements. When you go buy them, they'll have that in the serving size.
They will.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
Right.
Yep.
And you just have to remember to take it.
Right. Would you say that most people will need to be on some sort of supplementation to get there? Like if you look at the American population, what percent of people are not optimal?
About 90.
90%.
Yeah.
So that means most people need to be on this.
They need,
right?
unless they're going to change their fish
Diet completely,
eating
right.
habits, which is pretty hard. They kind of get fixed early in life. And if you don't like the taste of fish, you ain't going to. So nutritionists would always say food first, if at all possible.
Yeah.
But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right. And you're a biochemist, a PhD in nutrition.
Yeah.
So you definitely know exactly, how nutritionists like to talk about omegas. And what I find is that obviously it's food first, but almost most nutritionists I talk to are very pro supplementation.
Yeah, and I'm pro supplementation too.
Yeah.
I think that's the. You, just because you're not going to eat fish doesn't mean you should avoid not have the benefits, some of the benefits of eating fish. Which is the omega-3s.
Yeah. So, with the omega-3s, I want to dive a little bit deeper into the terms that you mentioned just real quickly here is EPA and DHA.
Oh, yeah.
What are EPA and DHA, and why is it also important to look at that ratio?
Yeah, great. Yeah, EPA and DHA. EPA is not a government agency. I mean, it's a fun story about that. But anyway, it stands for Eicosa pentaenoic acid, which Eicosa is the Greek word for 20,
right?
And penta is 5.
And Eicosa spelled with E-I.
E-I.
Exactly.
Thank you. Right. E-I. So EPA. And so it really, all it says is it's a 20 carbon fatty acid with 5 double bonds.
Okay.
So EPA. Docosahexaenoic acid is the other one.
Right.
Docosa is 22 and
5.
Hexagon.
Right.
6. That's 6.
6, sorry.
Yeah, 22, 6.
Yes.
That's the DHA's 22 carbons, 6 double bonds. Right. EPA, 20 carbons, 5 double bonds. So EPA and DHA is much easier to say. And those two we like to see, and they're always present in some ratio in fish. They always come together in nature. So I always like to, people really want to press me on which is better, EPA or DHA. Well, I think you got to get both of them. I'm not going to say one's better. We used to say EPA is good for inflammation and DHA is good for the brain.
Right.
Well, that's a little fuzzy now.
Yeah. Okay.
Because
so you need both of them.
You need both of them, and EPA seems to have a role to play in the brain, even though the brain is very rich in DHA, the meat of the brain,
right? The
tissue. But EPA seems to have, particularly in studies on depression, when people have looked at DHA-rich products in depression studies and EPA-rich products, it's the EPA-rich products that seem to work.
Yeah.
Which is kind of
interesting.
Is what's fun about research is you didn't expect that.
Exactly.
You weren't going there. And so, and DHA is his anti-inflammatory products. Actually, they're they're more resolution of inflammation. DHA is very good at the resolution of inflammation.
Okay, to
EPA
bringing
helps
down inflammation.
prevent the inflammation.
Got it. Okay.
So they work together.
They work together. So why is there such a focus on the ratio between omega-3s and omega-6s and EPA and DHA in, like, when people talk about this in clinical settings? Or should we not have a focus on that?
I think we should not have a focus on.
I'm so glad you said that, because I feel like sometimes I'm talking about something that doesn't really matter.
Well, and it's just confusing. I mean,
and very confusing, right?
I get on a soapbox when people start talking about the omega-6, omega-3 ratio, because it's just so imprecise. It doesn't define which fatty acids are the omega-3s.
Especially when you're measuring it on plasma.
Oh, yeah,
right?
Totally.
Exactly.
And again, I said there's 7 omega-6 fatty acids, and they don't all have the same role. They have different roles in biology. So to pool them into one big lump and then make this ratio doesn't make any sense. And you can have a high level of both omega-6 and omega-3 and a low level, and you have exactly the same ratio, which is just stupid. Yeah. So I just think that ratio is nuts. People need to focus on me. You're welcome.
I mean, there's so many biomarkers out there that you can test for, and people get confused and lost in the rabbit holes of these. And I love it when we can just come down to like one marker that you need to know.
Amen.
Right?
And I think to me that's the omega-3 index.
Right.
That is
agree.
EPA, DHA. That's what we're low. That's what we're low in.
Yeah.
That's what your supplement or your fish is going to raise, and that's where the good research evidence is.
I agree with that. And I think that really simplifies it for people. And what further simplifies it for people is that you've made it so easy to test it with this. We have a home test kit here that you can just buy online and it gets shipped to your house, right?
Right. We have many clinicians who are using it for their patients, but consumers can just order it directly online as well. And that's about $55, I think it is.
$55, right? And then it comes with like a little skin prick device.
Yes.
And a card that you send in the little
you put a drop of blood,
right?
Right, exactly.
And then you just
about a week
in.
later, you get an email with a link to your report and information about what to do about it.
Great. And then, like you said, the optimal is 8 and most people are around 4. So obviously then you need to do something.
Right.
And then I also like just, following this number along over time as you're kind of optimizing your intake. And what I've also found, and I don't know if you see this or not, people that start supplementing, they do go up, but sometimes they don't just go up all the way to 8. Sometimes they go from 4 to 6, right?
You just taking one pill a day.
Right.
Maybe. If you remember, you're not going to get up to 8.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, if you're a typical American, you're going to need 2 or 3 probably.
And that's what I found too. I was going to say, the recommended dose on the supplement is 2 capsules, but I have some people on 4.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
Right? Because it has to do a lot of absorption with supplement you're taking, how your body's incorporating it, how much your cells actually need. Because, I find some people they need 4 capsules for 6 months because they're sucking it up, I think.
Yeah, right? Well, unfortunately, you don't get cured of a low omega-3 like you get cured of a cold.
Yes.
You got to keep doing it if you want your blood levels to be high.
Right.
And just you got to keep going.
Right. So. And then periodically checking again makes a lot of sense. How often do you recommend someone check their omega-3 index?
Once you're at a stable intake and you've got an omega-3, I think maybe every 4 to 6 months is great.
Agreed.
I mean, I'd be thankful if they do it once a year, if they just keep that level up.
Yes.
But titrating a level, in medicine, that's what we love to do, is to titrate till we get to the target we're aiming for.
Yeah, our bodies are evolving biological organisms.
Right.
Those things are constantly changing.
Exactly.
And, unfortunately, this is a test that is not done pretty much ever in the typical primary care setting.
That's right. Breaks my heart. It's always my hope this would eventually be part of a standard, just like a cholesterol test.
Right.
Actually, it's more predictive of total mortality, of risk for death,
really,
than cholesterol is.
Yeah,
it's a better marker, and it's much more easy to fix, and you don't need drugs to do it.
That's why it's not, it's part of the standard physical, because there's no drug
maybe
to
you've got a point there.
There's not a drug company pushing it.
Without a drug company pushing it, then there's a couple drug companies that push omega-3, but not. One of them is just EPA, which I think is unfortunate.
Yeah, so talk about that, because there are prescription drugs out there that you can buy that are prescription fatty acids,
omega-3s, right?
Yeah.
Right. They're not really any. Well, one of them is called Vasipa, and it's EPA only.
Right. Why EPA only?
Well, because they got it goes way back almost to the Inuit studies. But the original idea was the EPA was preventing blood clots because it was competing with arachidonic acid and platelets and the idea was you would not have these blood clots causing a heart attack if you took EPA. And so a Japanese drug company developed an EPA-only product back in the 80s and never really tested it for heart disease per se. But then another company bought it and they used it in a very successful study and giving 4 grams a day, though.
Right.
This is pharmacologic dosing. This is nothing you'd ever get from your diet.
Right.
And it doesn't have DHA,
right,
which is unfortunate.
Right.
And so we really haven't had a good study of EPA plus DHA in the same sense. But there's a product called Lovesa. In America, it's called Omicor in the rest of the world.
Right.
Right. And then that's an EPA plus DHA product. But those are the 2 pharmaceutical ones you can get.
But why would you take a pharmaceutical EPA DHA when you can just take it in supplement form?
Well, if you ask the drug companies, they say, well, you can't trust dietary supplements, and they're just not regulated and it's a wild west out there. Well, okay, I get the point, but I don't know why you would take.
Right. That's my point exactly.
Insurance will reimburse.
And that's the other thing, right?
A drug if it's written by a physician.
But this is endemic, and this is indicative of the problem with our modern medical system today.
Yes, right.
You end up spending $10 on a prescription version of what you can get for $1. And,
yes, exactly. I know.
Right?
It plays out everywhere.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And the reality is, like, if you're testing for this with a $55 test and your levels are okay with a supplement, you don't need a prescription version of this. And you especially don't need just plain old EPA by itself. That doesn't make any sense to pay additional money for that. There's nothing magical about that.
I don't think so. Right.
With Vasipa. I see a lot of people on Vasipa. I'm like, stop taking that,
just get a supplement.
Just get a supplement, right, because it's going to work better and you get DHA and you get...
Yeah, and probably their copay on that thing is more than the cost of the supplement.
Their copay is like $25. And like, I'm sure the insurance company is paying like $100 for it too.
Right.
It's mind-blowing to me.
It is good.
Well, I mean, I think, the test is available online. You get an omega-3 index. You get also... There's a plus version where you can also get like your trans fat, right?
Right. We can dig deeper.
I like the plus version because I want people to know their trans fats.
Yeah, the trans fat, and we also offer all that railing against the omega-6 omega-3 ratio. We offer it because we can measure it, and some people like it, and so okay, here it is. But don't hang your hat on it, my show. And then there's a complete test, which is the 3rd level, which is where you get all of the blood fatty acids.
Got it. And who would use that?
People who love numbers.
Yeah.
Really. And honestly, my marketing people always hate when they ask me this question because I think the basic test is you're getting 80%. And then you add the trans fat in the plus. Then I think you're really getting 95% of the real bump. But people do like to just know what's their palmitic acid level, what's their arachidic acid level, what's their arachidonic acid level. And there are all these fatty acids that are there. And the question is exactly what do you do with it?
Yeah.
And what does it predict? And can you even, about probably 60, 70% of the fatty acids in your blood, you really can't control because it's metabolically controlled.
Right.
So you can't do much about it. And if it's not actionable, I don't think it's important.
I think what's massively actionable is your omega-3 levels, your omega-3 index, and how much trans fat you put into your body.
Correct.
And so I like the trans fat piece because it keeps people honest with me that, what they're putting into their body. And
and if they know you're looking too.
Right, exactly.
Well, they may not know they're eating it.
Yeah, and that's the other problem. They don't know where it's coming from.
Right.
And then we do a deeper dive with a nutritionist and we figure it out.
That's great.
So I really like those levels, and I think they're massively important for people. And I really appreciate you coming on the podcast to talk about this and educate us on this in such a clear and concise way that just makes it easy.
Well, you've got a great reach, and it's a real honor to be on here with you. I appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. I would love for people to know where they can find out more about the test, maybe hear some more teachings from you.
Yeah, the laboratory or company is called Omega Quant. So Omega Quant, like quantity, quantify. OmegaQuant.com, or you can just look up the omega-3 index. Google that. That will take you to our lab, and then you can order the basic, the plus test with the trans fats, or the complete test there. And again, you'll get this kit in the mail and put a drop of blood on it, send it in, and about a week later, you'll have your number.
I love it.
And take it to your doctor, and he'll go, "What in the world is this?" You have no idea. You'll have to educate your doctor because you'll know more about it than he does.
Yeah, especially after listening to this episode.
Amen to that.
Bill, thank you so much for joining me today.
My
This has
pleasure.
been very educational. Thank you.
Thank you.